I wanted to talk today and tell you all sort of an overview of REDF's monitoring process and plan, which is really a partnership between our programs team and our compliance and finance staff. And I will say, very similar to what Chris mentioned, when REDF SIF first started in 2010, it was actually our first federal grant. So there's definitely a steep learning process for us in order to get our monitoring and compliance up to speed. And we definitely utilize a lot of these tips and tricks that Chris has mentioned so far. But I think for this first section, what I'll do is I'll talk over the relationship and structure of our monitoring team and provide an overview of how we structure our monitoring plan and how we work with our grantees to ensure that they achieve their program goals and are also compliant. And later on, I'll move into the nitty-gritty of the execution. So I'll tell you more specifics about exactly how our monitoring plan works and how often we are checking in with our grantees and how and who and all of that good stuff. But the relationship and the structure of our monitoring team is really built around viewing our relationship with our grantees as a partnership. So we're our entire goal is to work with the grantee to help them set both programmatic performance goals and measure against those goals to make sure that they are successful in achieving what they set out to do. And in addition, we want to make sure that they're doing all of that while still being compliant with the grant and SIF overall. So the way that we have this structured at REDF is we have two teams, the portfolio team that works on the programmatic performance goals side. So the way that works is each grantee is assigned to a relationship manager who is in charge of monitoring grantee performance and for managing grant and compliance issues in the partnership with the compliance and finance teams. So it's very much an in-tandem partnership. The portfolio team, just so you guys all have a sense of kind of what our staffing structure looks like. Our portfolio team currently has 4 relationship managers. We're soon moving to 5. We currently have 21 sub-grantees. So each portfolio manager is working with 4 to 5 grantees. And we also have junior staff on our portfolio team who are also assigned to specific grantees, and they help manage and monitor as well as provide the technical assistance. The other piece of this partnership is the compliance and finance team at REDF, and they are really assisting with the fiscal and compliance processes in collaboration and with support from the portfolio team. So our finance and compliance, our finance team is about 3 to 4 people, and then our compliance officer is a single person. But we typically will frequently all be sitting down together to discuss various issues that have arisen with our portfolio groups. So the way that we've set up our and have structured our monitoring plan is through several different steps. So the first step really started with the risk assessment that Chris mentioned. So it started out with a lot of rigorous diligence during the selection process for us. And in that process, we did a full review of the organization's financial statements and audits. And it was actually really, again, a joint effort between the portfolio team and the finance team. So both teams reviewed the financials and audits and flagged issues that we thought we had concerns with and really discussed it to help come to a discussion or a conclusion of what risk level we thought each potential grantee was at. We also had our compliance officer review their various administrative policies to get a better understanding of their ability and capacity for compliance with SIF policies and procedures. So again, this was in partnership both with the portfolio team, so the portfolio managers, as well as our compliance officers. Early on in our selection process, we actually also went and conducted site visits so we could have a better understanding of what their program and capacity to achieve their performance goals really were, and that was largely the portfolio team, but it really informed discussions we had with our finance and compliance teams as well. So with all of that information, we performed a risk assessment on groups, and we assigned our grantees to categories, and really had sort of a plan laid out for each set of groups. So, you know, high-risk groups, we let them know that we were going to be requiring a full audit of backup documents each quarter when we were going over their budget to actuals, versus, you know, a low-risk group that had a lot of experience. Maybe we're already SIF grantees in some other capacity, and we're really familiar with all of these policies. You know, we didn't have to do quite as much backup review as maybe a higher-risk group. And that kind of leads me to our next step in our monitoring plan, which is really actually making sure we were communicating really clear requirements to the groups and making sure that we had all of our monitoring expectations and compliance expectations documented for our groups. So once we made the selections and let our groups know that we're selected to be part of this, part of our portfolio, really the very first thing we did was send out this documentation that let them know what the compliance requirements are, what the reporting requirements were going to look like, what our expectations were in terms of the execution of the grants. And that was kind of the more specific fiscal and compliance piece of it, but a huge piece of what REDF expects to see from our grantees is, of course, their ability to achieve the goals that we lay out for them or that we come to together. So the next piece of the monitoring process for us is actually setting goals with them, both short and long-term programmatic goals. So for REDF, that's, you know, really around figuring out how many people that we think they can employ in their social enterprises each year, what financial targets we think they can hit, what programmatic goals and outcomes we think they can hit, and not just in the individual year, but really 5 years out as well. So we worked with our group to develop these projections and lay out work plans with them to figure out like exactly what steps we needed to take with them to ensure that they hit the goals we wanted to see. And then once we kind of have those goals that we're, you know, managing performance to, this is, you know, we had this sort of roadmap for what we were checking up on a regular basis through our monitoring plan. So as part of the regular process, we really spend a lot of time identifying issues early on. So the monitoring plan, which I'll delve into more detail later, we're regularly in touch with our grantees so that we can identify issues early on and we're not taken by surprise. And again, because we view our relationship with our grantees as a partnership, we try to make it as easy as possible for them to come to us when they are experiencing issues and know that they should come to us early on, because then we can address things before they become larger issues. So we really try to make sure they feel like there's an open avenue of a communication there, and that we're not there to punish them if things aren't going well. We're really there to ensure that we can help course correct. So once any issues that arise are sort of identified, we move on to addressing the challenge. So we work with them to devise plans to address challenges, both from the grants and compliance standpoint. So there, of course, have been some groups who have been new to the SIF process, where we worked with them to set up a more robust criminal history check process, to more common issues with our grantees, which are really around addressing programmatic challenges. And that's really the majority of what the portfolio team does, which is work with our grantees and provide technical assistance to help them work through different business and program challenges that arise so that they can hit their program goals. We regularly measure progress, so we're always making sure that we're measuring and tracking the progress against goals, and I'll talk later on about some of the tools we use for that. But on a regular basis, monthly at least, we're always reviewing their financials, we're reviewing their success metrics. They have to report several success metrics to us monthly around what they've achieved in their against their goals and in terms of like their people employed, et cetera. So we're regularly checking in and monitoring progress and figuring out along the line how we have to course correct, if we need to course correct, or a lot of times when our grantees are just doing things really well, how we can push them forward even more. So, you know, if they look like they're going to exceed their goals, like that's fantastic. Let's see if we can push them a little further. And then, of course, we do make sure that we are working with our compliance and finance teams to regularly set up compliance and fiscal reviews. So we have a few mechanisms in place to do that. So of course, we regularly review our finances or have the group send us their finances so we can keep an eye on that. And our compliance officer is regularly reviewing and tracking some of the documentation that we require. So, for example, if an insurance certificate is coming up on expiring, our compliance officer will reach out to the portfolio team and let us know so that we can reach out to our grantees and inform them of the documentation that we need, and then they can let us know if for some reason they're experiencing some challenge, and then we can work with them to figure that out. So that works for criminal history certifications, backup documentation, procurement policies. It's always really a team effort between the portfolio team and the compliance team on making sure that the groups are in compliance. And so through these regular check-ins and other reporting tools, we're able to work with our grantee partners to ensure that we're providing the supports that they need to achieve their goals and remain in grant compliance. So that's kind of how we've set things up, and I think later on I'll delve into more detail around the specifics on tools and execution.